high school students' parents should have received an email from the Newton Public Schools on December 8th on whether their child would like to attend a hybrid model of in-person learning or remain in the distance-only model of learning. The plan is similar to what students are doing now remotely, shorter periods and longer breaks in between. Teachers will teach students both in person and remotely at the same time using cameras and microphones. This allows for a seamless transition between models should public health conditions change. The HYFLEX model will be divided into cohorts. How many cohorts will be determined by how many students sign up for the hybrid plan. Students who do choose in-person learning will attend classes for 2 full days in a row in similar groups on a rotating basis, either Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday, with Wednesdays reserved for cleaning the high schools, and all students are remotely learning. If there are 4 cohorts, students will attend 4 days of school per month, or 2 days every 2 weeks.
Here's a little more detail about what the December timeline would look like if we're moving forward with this plan. As soon as the plan is approved through December 11th, we would have student and family information being sent out electronically. We mentioned videos as well as live follow-up and information sessions. We would need by December 13th, the end of next week, for families to submit an updated selection, whether they want their children to participate in hybrid or the distance-only options that are part of this plan. We would send out this form in the middle of the next week once some of that information gets out to folks and they have can have a better understanding of the plan. By the end of this month, we would complete creating initial cohorts or determine how many cohorts we would have, and initial cohort assignments internally would be made. And then through the beginning of January, we would adjust those cohort assignments and make classroom assignments for courses to ensure there's adequate space for all of our cohorts in our different classes and courses throughout the high school buildings. And then proceeding through the month of January, we would have that announcement of the number of cohorts. Families would be informed of their cohort assignments, and the transportation and seat assignment process would begin as well. So that's sort of from the family-facing side of the timeline in more detail. We've really thought a lot, and our committee has really grappled with how to support high school faculty through this transition. There's really significant challenges and workload that's placed on faculty in both in the transition and in the sustainability of this plan. So we certainly know that there needs to be ongoing professional development, not just on the 2 professional days we mentioned, but throughout our professional development time that we have dedicated in December and January, time for faculty learn from others, as well as to develop best practices collaboratively. There needs to be that technology training to be able to ensure that there's access for both remote students and in-person students to all classes. We really believe we need to look at some of our key time Wednesdays potentially as asynchronous learning time for our students to ensure that faculty have sufficient time to be prepared for this shift, and in an ongoing way ensure that there's a meeting and professional time for our faculty teams to implement the HYFLEX model. And we also, one of the nice advantages of the phase-in period, that in January, we believe there's opportunities for some teachers to pilot HYFLEX teaching, and that'll allow them to not only to get opportunities to practice and learn, but for others to learn and observe from their experiences as well. So we think that's one of several ways, and we're anxious to develop more ways to support our high school staffs through the transition. A little more detail about the cohort process based on some of the questions that have been asked. And Henry Turner, I appreciate, came up with a nice pseudo-mathematical formula for what it is that we need to do. But we're combining the variables of building space, the requests that we do get for the hybrid model, and then our remote teaching needs for those staff members who do have a remote accommodation and would need to, whose in-person students would need to be accessing their remote classes while they're in the building. Based on those 3 factors, we'll determine how many cohorts, whether we need likely 3 or 4. Our goal, regardless, is to have as few cohorts as possible. That will allow students who are attending in the hybrid format to attend as frequently as possible and maintain those 6-foot distancing. Having those cohorts is what ensures that there's safe spacing, both in classrooms but also in our lunch areas, and also in those spaces where in-person learners are accessing those remote classes by teachers with a remote accommodation. And then again, important to remember that there's always remote participants in our classes in this hybrid model. It's both those students who are in the hybrid model but are not in person on those days, as well as our distance only students. So that's a continuous portion of this program.